Federal agencies are scrambling to sort through a flurry of directives from the Trump administration over what government websites can and cannot display, in many cases sparking a social media backlash over the changes. Here with us to discuss is WSJ reporter Amy Harder in our Washington bureau. Amy, thanks for being with us. How confused do agency officials seem to be right now, not just over what government websites can display, but there are other things at play as well?
Right. There's a lot of confusion right now, and I think that's due to a few reasons. Number one, the Trump administration has been a little bit slower in getting some teams in place than past transitions in power here in Washington. So there's really not a lot of people really on the ground in these agencies that will be there permanently that can really give clear and concise and also potentially permanent orders to these thousands of government employees. So there's that. But then also you're seeing a lot of Twitter backlash, as you said, in particular in the environmental and energy and climate area. And a lot of this is coming from the fear from some of the comments that President Trump has made on climate change, saying how he doesn't think it's a real issue. So in that regard, there's those issues as well. And
Amy, we know that the EPA was in the spotlight this week because there were reports the Trump administration was going to delete the agency's website on climate change. What is the latest development there?
Right. Well, so the Trump administration did delete President Obama's climate page on the White House website, and that happened right after the inauguration on Friday. So that has fueled some concern. The new White House or the new EPA spokesman said that there's no plans to delete the climate website on EPA. I think there were plans, and then they backtracked on that, in part because of the backlash, but also because there's just so much confusion about what they can do and not do. There's been a lot of advances in technology over the last 8 years, and we shouldn't forget about that.
Absolutely. Now, there have been these unofficial Twitter accounts popping up. There was an unofficial EPA account, a couple other agency accounts, and these now have tens of thousands of followers?
Right. You're seeing alt EPA, alt HHS, and a lot of them are tweeting things. Sometimes they're facts about climate change. Other times they're expressing alleged views from people inside the EPA and other agencies. It's hard for reporters to confirm that because a lot of the people behind these accounts are not coming forward to telling us who they are. But I think it's an important show of opposition to the president, and it's going to be something that they'll have to keep in mind going forward. It's important to remember that we don't know what's going to happen in the EPA, for example, on what they'll post on climate change and what they won't. But this backlash, this immediate backlash, will be a sign that they will be watching very closely.
Very closely indeed. Now, people you spoke with in your reporting say it isn't unusual for there to be starkly different approaches to communications during a presidential transition, but there are some things that are different about this one. Correct, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that's different is simply, it's like I said, it's been 8 years since we've had any transition in power. The last time there was a transition from a Republican to a Democrat was in 2000 between Clinton and Bush, and the internet was just a baby back then. So, this is uncharted territory for the Trump administration in terms of how to handle tweets on certain issues. For example, a National Park Service account in South Dakota started tweeting about climate change earlier this week, and that's an issue that account doesn't usually tweet about, and it ended up being a former employee who still had access to the account. So that's never happened before, but it's also never happened because Twitter wasn't such a big deal 8 years ago. And so that's something to keep in mind. I think, NASA has tweeted about climate change, and those didn't go anywhere under this new administration. So I think it's important to realize that there is a lot of fear among some people in the climate community about what Trump will do, but it's important to parse that away from what has actually happened.
Right. Some of it's not realized, not just yet. Now, the Wall Street Journal did review an internal memo indicating any communications related to policy action from the Interior Department must get a second review. Is that right?
Right. Those type of memos have been pretty common throughout the administration. And some of that is normal. Some people have said that goes a little bit farther than what past administrations have done. But so far, there doesn't seem to be any illegal action going on. There is a pause in all public-facing information right now from these websites, in part because the Obama administration was doing a lot at the very end, as most administrations do. And this administration, this new one under President Trump, is trying to get a handle on what was going on, and that appears to be a quite broad goal there. Will it be too broad in the end? I think we'll have to see if there will be a restarting of some of these publications of some more routine issues that aren't as politicized as perhaps, aggressive action on climate change, for example.
All right, Amy Harder in Washington, thank you so much for that.